Teammates, first and foremost, if this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the show. Welcome to the number one podcast on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know how we get down on this show. We get right to the point. Today, we're going to discuss the importance of knowing what your role is. All right, knowing exactly what your role is. First of all, knowing exactly what you want your role to be, and then knowing exactly who you're bringing in for whatever role that you're trying to fill. And I'm using the word role very intentionally, all right, because we're going to look at it from two angles. We're going to look at it from the angle of the employer, and then we're also going to look at it from the angle of the employee. And when you have two people who are aligned from an employee standpoint and from an employer standpoint, and they're both understanding what their role is, then you create what I believe it's Stephen Covey, if I'm not mistaken. I can't know. I don't remember who actually coined the phrase "win-win deals." But when you have two people who understand, you have both sides of the equation, the employer and the employee, and there's a very clear understanding of what the role is for the specific person. You have a win-win scenario. All right, you have a situation in which things are moving very cohesively and society is being pushed forward. When you don't have that understanding, when you don't have that communication, when there are people that are within your organization or you yourself are in an organization where you're not really, really clear on what your role is, that is going to lead to chaos. All right. Now, I am recording this just about a week after. And for those of you who don't know, I know the regular listeners already know this about me, but for those of you who don't know, I do teach at a startup school named the Center of Creative Education. And in fact, just today, the day that I'm actually recording this, we had a meeting with the CEO of the school. And one of the things that was myself and other teachers, one of the things that he actually brought up in this meeting was that, hey, the amount, well, I'll tell you this, the reason that we had the meeting is because myself and a couple other colleagues that's been there for some time now, we were very concerned because we love the kids and the concept. The name of the school, like I said, is Center of Creative Education. And for me, I'm all about it. I'm all about the creativity. I tell them all the time, if I was a kid, knowing how much I didn't necessarily like, so how much I didn't fit in at school, and how much football was really the only thing that made it so I would go or had any interest in school whatsoever. I always tell them, look, a school like this is something that I really would have loved. I know my parents would have loved to send me to a place like this, so it's very rewarding. However, when we're seeing so much turnover, it is a cause for concern. So it was myself and several other colleagues. We had a conversation with the founder of the school. He's not the founder, but the CEO, the current sitting CEO of the school. And he told us, pretty much in response to our concern about, hey, there's just a lot of turnover and whatever it is, he pretty much told us, hey, that's something that everybody deals with. That's something that you're going to have to deal with in every single industry. And, as soon as he said that, I understood exactly what he was saying, because I myself have a fitness background, come from the athletics and the fitness world. And if you want to talk about turnover, I mean, it's like every single day, it's like a revolving door, right? So that led to me talking about giving more of a deep dive in today's episode about what exactly your role is and knowing what the role is. And it's off the heels. There was not only that meeting that we had, but there was also, just again, a week from me recording this. I know by the time this comes out, it'll be about a month out. There was a like an abrupt firing. All right. And unfortunately, this wasn't something. There was basically a teacher who I was working very closely with in fourth grade who's no longer at the school. And like I said, unfortunately, this isn't the first time that I've seen a teacher who was hired at the beginning of the school year leave before the school year ended. And in my opinion, that's not something at all, that's a good thing. I don't like it. I personally, again, if I'm running the place, if I'm making those decisions, I do what I can actually I do what I can to try to avoid that situation as much as possible. Now, granted, I'm not that person. I don't know what's being said behind closed doors. I don't know what the teacher's responsibility was to the I don't like to we don't like to use the term principal, but to the person that's running the education services and all that. I don't know what's been said between those two, so I don't have necessarily the information to comment on it and say who was right and who was wrong, which side should have been fired, which side should not have been. I honestly haven't heard both sides of the story. But what I can do is I can use this as a lesson for you to understand how actually important it is for you to communicate with the people that are responsible for clarifying what your role is. All right. That's what I can do. Because what I had to see, and this was, not only with the recent teacher that was let go, but even last year when there was another teacher who was let go, what I saw, what I knew was going to happen, and I called it out from the moment that I met them, that these particular teachers are not going to last very long. And the reason I knew they were not going to last very long, excuse me, is because there wasn't any clarity on what their role is, and they didn't ask enough questions. They didn't take the initiative to be very clear about what their role is. I mean, even in just conversation with the teachers that were let go, the questions they were asking were not questions that were leading to them getting clarity on their role is and get specific on what it is they're supposed to be doing and how to utilize this opportunity to get them to where it is they're trying to go. And I tell people all the time, look, when it comes to myself, education, becoming an educator, this was not the plan. There's a reason that I don't have a teacher certification and I don't intend on getting one. The reason I'm in education was, number one, I have my own books out. I have my own intellectual property out. I have my own podcast. I have my own platform. I have my own things going on to where I'm educating a certain demographic of people. I'm educating business owners on innovative teamwork. So being an educator, it's just a great synergy. It's a great complement, especially when it comes to the type of school that I currently teach at. It's just great. It's great synergy in terms of where the school is trying to go and where I'm trying to take my business. There's a great alignment there. All right. There was the intellectual property that I already had and I already created. That's what led me to being an educator. All right. However, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people are in the business, or excuse me, I don't say the business, but they're basically, well, you can say it, they're kind of in the business of what's in it for me. They're in the business of how much do I get paid. They're in the business of, when do I get my vacations and where's my paid time off and how does this work? They're in the business of trying to find a job where you don't have to do as much work as possible. And in fact, I just actually recorded, if you go back and listen to the episode titled "Do What Your Work Is Versus Your Job," it really aligns with what I'm saying now. It's kind of the beginning stages, or the beginning stages of what we're talking about now in terms of understanding what your role is. All right, so how to understand your role. All right, that's what we're going to dive into there. And I'm going to give you some specifics on when it really actually is helpful, when it really actually is something that works to the best of everyone involved, to everyone, whoever's involved, how it can really help people, get themselves together, and how it can, I mean, those win-win scenarios, when you see it happen, when you see it working, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Trust me, it's a beautiful thing. All right. So as always, I always go back to the football field for examples when it comes to this. What I learned in business and when it comes to, establishing a line of teamwork, establishing the best ways to teach teamwork. I'm a firm believer that football is the best example. All right. So I played at a Division I school named Stony Brook University. All right. Now, if you're comparing Stony Brook currently, if you're comparing Stony Brook to major college football like Alabama and Georgia and Michigan and all those types of and all those big time schools, you would say, Stony Brook football isn't that big of a deal. However, from where they were to where they are now, they have grown unbelievably. All right. When I was first looking to go there, and then when it was kind of back in my playing day, this was back in from 08 to 2010 and all that. I graduated 07, graduated high school in 07, and I finished off college in 2011. Right. So I did my 4 years. Stony Brook was a very, very weaker Division One program, a very weak FCS program, and we were growing to become. We were like very mediocre, mid-level. The 2 years I was there, we went 6-5, and we did actually win the Big South Conference. Right. I remember when I was looking to go there, and I was a walk-on there, right? I remember when I was looking to go there, and it became like my dream school because I wanted to prove to myself that I could play Division One football. It was in New York. I have a ton of family in New York. At the time, I was looking to be a business major, and I wanted to be in that area. Internships, meet some people, shake hands, all that kind of stuff. That was, the motivation behind being at Stony Brook and behind going to Stony Brook, right? So I remember during those times, Coach P, who at the time was the head coach there, I remember watching a lot of YouTube videos of what they were looking for when it comes to recruiting and where the program was and how all that stuff worked, right? And I remember him saying this was something he said specifically on one of the interviews that he was given when it comes to what he's looking for in recruiting. He put out the question. He goes, "Can you recruit the kid who can run down on kickoffs and be in special teams, who can be the guy, yeah, who can be the guy covering kicks and making sure they're doing whatever they need to do on special teams? We know we can recruit whatever we need on offense and defense, but however, do we have the depth to go out and compete and build as a program?" And when I just so if you're a non-football person, I'll explain what I mean when I say special teams. Special teams is the group that goes into the game as the offense and defense are switching sides. The teams are switching sides from offense and defense. So you see kickoff return, punt return, and field goal. So all of those are special teams in which are transitions in each game whenever an offense and defense are going to be switching sides. Whenever a team is going to be switching from offense to defense, a special teams play comes out. And that shit is so fucking important. I'll just tell you right now, being on special teams, I remember Coach Malloy, my previous coach, my high school coach, we'd work on punt like the most. I mean, first thing we would do is work on punt. And when I got to college, every Friday or like the Fridays before the games, we would make sure we go through our special teams because special teams can win and lose you a game. It can be a play made on special teams that'll either win the game or lose the game. Trust me, that shit is so important, which is why it's for you real football people, it's so fucking annoying watching NFL games now and seeing basically the kickoff being taken out of the game, which I thought was just really stupid. But anyway, we don't get into that right now. It's another conversation for another day, right? So anyway, once I got to Stony Brook, it was my second season. I played there for 2 seasons, my junior and my senior year, right? Once I got there, my second year was the spring of my second year. I remember they brought in another linebacker. They brought in another linebacker. Shout out to name was Andy, right? Shout out to Andy, right? So Andy was a Miami boy, right? And now that I live out here in South Florida, even back then, when you're talking about recruits from Miami, there's like a high level of respect that they ultimately get whenever they walk into whatever football field, whatever program that they're going to be in, because Miami is where it's at. Miami is kind of the hotbed for recruiting and all that kind of stuff, right? So Andy came in as a linebacker. How even though he was from Miami, he was still a bit undersized for the position. However, just an incredible athlete, speed, heart, athletic ability, the whole thing, right? So Andy ended up playing on special teams that year. And one of the things that happened was after every game, Coach P would give an award for offensive player of the week, defensive player of the week, and special teams player of the week. And it was one of those weeks in which Andy got special teams player of the week, right? So once Coach P announced that he got special teams player of the week, he kind of looked at the team as he said, all right, guys, he's starting to understand his role. All right. And as soon as he said that, I made the connection to back when, excuse me, I made the connection to back when I listened to him on YouTube talk about, can he, as a coach, or can the program recruit the guy who's on special teams who can run down on kickoff and make plays and all that kind of stuff. Now, when I made that connection, and then you look at the way things are now and the way the program has grown from where we become to the point where there's times where we've beaten Division I schools, where Stony Brook has actually beaten Division I schools. And I'll give you an example. When my last season there, we played the South Florida Bulls, USF in Tampa, right? And we got our ass kicked 55-10. It was like maybe 6 or 7 years ago now, when I was actually in Florida and I saw that Stony Brook was playing. I saw that Stony Brook was playing the same school, USF. In fact, I wanted to go to the game, but it was that year in which I moved to South Florida. So I used to be in St. Petersburg, like right there in Tampa. So I would have been easily been able to go to the game. But it was at that point, that fall, I'd already moved to South Florida, so I couldn't make it to that Saturday. But anyway, I was looking at the score on my ESPN app, and I realized that Stony Brook was actually leading. They were leading South Florida going into halftime. They didn't actually end up winning, but the fact that they were winning the game going into halftime compared to when I played there and we got our ass beat 55-10, right? You see how much better the program Stony Brook actually became. And when you compare it to what Coach P was saying in terms of understanding your role and figuring out your role and all that kind of stuff, that leads to a major lesson in terms of you as a business owner and what you should be establishing and how your roles and how getting clear on what your role is going to be with the organization, how that communication can lead to some unbelievable results as an organization. Take a lesson from the game. All right. This is very important. And I'll close you out. I'll close you out with this understanding, because I've been at this school for 2 years, and actually literally just a couple hours ago, I found out I'm actually going to be getting another raise. So I'll be getting a little more money coming in every 2 weeks and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I never really, again, me as a person, me as the entrepreneur in the situation, and me as the person that's always kind of in the business mindset. I'm never the one to bitch about, oh, I need more money or I deserve more money. No, my mindset is always about, how do I create more money? How do I create real money? Because there's no employer that's going to pay me what I feel like I'm worth. All right. What an employer is going to do is going to help when it comes to my business. I always have the understanding that my business is going to be actually what pays me what I'm worth. So I have that mindset going into whatever job it is I'm going to be having. Right. So anyway, what we did, and then, like I was mentioning before, it was myself and other teachers, we had this conversation with the CEO of the school. And one of the things he said that stuck with me, that really stuck with me, like my main takeaway throughout the entire meeting, was when he explained that his vision for this brand new startup school was for a person to go from a teacher to a consultant that goes and talks about the school and speaks about the school as if it's the first that's doing a first of its kind, a school that's doing the work that we're doing in regards to monitoring reading scores, in regards to improving the literacy rates of young people in Palm Beach and all that kind of stuff. He basically was telling us that's what he would like for every teacher, for them to go on and become a consultant and be able to pull people in and teach people the way we're doing things and why it's working in regards to helping young people, engaging young people in learning, using creativity to engage young people in learning. All right. So the minute he said that, my arm was like shaking, like I was so excited, like I was moved because I couldn't contain my excitement, because you got to understand, the first company, all the work that I've done, the business that I have now, it's set up already to be a consultant. It's set up, the business is set up to do consulting work. And when he said that, it was like, all right, boom. That's the role. The role for Oswald is to continue, not to necessarily, go and get, or spend too much time trying to become get a teacher certification and do all that other shit. The role now would be to more so set up the business and set up the work I'm doing as a consultant. And then there's the win-win scenario between the Move Swiftly School of Sports Management and the Center of Creative Education, the foundation school, whatever, the foundation school and the Center for Creative Education, which is pretty much the same thing. But to be able to align the business that I'm creating and what they're doing as what I'm doing as a consultant and what they're doing as a school, there's that win-win scenario that makes it so I can really enjoy what I do even more because I know my role. And I challenge you, like I said, I'm gonna close you guys out soon. I challenge you to do this very thing, to do these checkups, to do these temperature checks every single day so people don't get burnout. So they don't, so you don't have to deal with a major turnover issue when it comes to why people are leaving, where they're going, what's the problem. The problem is you get not getting clear on what the role is, whether it's the employer that's listening to me or whether it's the employee that's listening to me. You got to make sure every single day you're understanding the role and get better at that role, and then ask yourself what is that role going to lead to, and then you can make a informed decision on whether you stay, whether you let a person go, how a person's moving, what exactly you have them doing from day to day. All right. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.